Back at Snappy Tomato Pizza, Skyhawk Talk with Coach Jason Simpson, and UT Martin gets the win over Southeast Missouri. Coach, you alluded to it when we first opened, but it certainly was a different second half. They score 7, and the final score is 17-7. And I guess we were kind of talking in the booth and with John Abel down on the sideline. Are they playing better? What's changed here in the second half? And it was a different second half than we saw in the first half. What was the difference there, Coach?
I think a combination of both. I think they, were playing to trying to save their. I mean, they're 0-3. And of course we got to match that intensity. But silly mistakes. I mean, quarterback went the wrong way one time on a run play. The tailback went the wrong way twice. One we checked a quarterback run, and our senior DJ McNeil. And although we had a great game running with the football, we've got to be better without the ball. Those type of things happen. We missed, I think, 2 receivers on 2 throws. The combination of things. We need to play better, need to coach better. But at no time was I, like I said, was ever going to. They were going to make us throw the ball, and I didn't feel like that time it was necessary to take the risk, and and it just was more important to get out there with a win and get home for this week.
Well, that's the thing, and I'm not even in Chattanooga and Central Arkansas now against Southeast Missouri. I'm even saying we have not played our best football of the season and played a consistent 4 quarters, but we've won all 3 games.
Right. Well,
I've asked coaches sometimes, would you rather play the perfect game and lose or have some mistakes and win? And I had one coach say, I'd rather play a perfect game and lose. But that really, the bottom line is to get victories, which is very promising, is that your team finds a way to win. Yeah. Plus, you hadn't hit the ceiling yet.
Well, that's the way we're looking at it, because we're still trying to get our punt return game going. You're talking about a team that led the country in punt returns the last 2 years, and so got to improve our blocking. We haven't got a whole lot of return opportunities with all the rugby kicks and stuff. Kickoff return. We have not, we ain't got the ball outside the 35-yard line in 4 games. Okay, so
which means you're moving the ball to score.
Yeah, exactly. So, but therefore, we're not scoring a lot of points because we're not getting a whole lot of short fields. But the bottom line is our defense is playing well. We're not losing the game on special teams. We're running the football effectively. We don't have Derek Carr at quarterback right now.
Right.
We're still, like I said, Dylan's got a certain skill set, and I'm still learning what those are. He's still learning our players and different things. So it's a combination of things. And but as you see us start to play better teams, this week particularly, we're going to have to be ready to score. And I don't care how good you are on defense. Eventually, people are going to score touchdowns against you, and we've got to be able to match and score one more point than they do.
Yeah, Coach. One of the things that was better in the game against Southeast Missouri is the penalty numbers were down. We had fewer penalties than the opponent, 5 for 39 yards.
Yeah, because that's a game that if you're not throwing the ball down the field and you're not making any plays, then all of a sudden you look up and you got 8 or 9 penalties. Then it's probably tighter than what it is, and so. Hopefully we're getting better at that, and this group of officials kind of let us play, and that's good. That's what we like.
In the run game, you have a lot of depth. You go to DJ McNeil 27 times, though, 156 gaining 148 net yards, averaging 5.5. And he got in a rhythm in the first half, and he was really, really solid.
He did. And
it seems to me like he was seeing those gaps, and it was just kind of in slow motion for him at times.
Well, and one thing that DJ does, and you see, we put him kind of back there in the pistol, and that's kind of where he's more comfortable because he gets his shoulder square. Him and Abu both, and they're big guys, and that's one adjustment we made from the weeks before, and give our offensive line credit. Now, Southeast Missouri is a moving defense as far as the 3 technique will go across center's face and the nose loops or vice versa, and then they take off and run when they see our hats go running that outside zone. And so you'll see our offensive linemen taking 3 or 4 steps before they ever make contact with anybody because the defensive lineman across the ball from them is running. And so we have to stay on our track and collect it, and the back's got to do a good job staying on his track before he makes his, we tell him he gets 1 cut. He gets 1 cut to get through the hole, and he's got to stay on that track. And at times, DJ looked really hit it. It looked like it was supposed to look. And then other times, I think where we would get ahead of ourselves, we were trying to make the cut before we got, until we got to our landmark. And instead of making a 9-yard run, it might be a 3-yard run. And so those are things we got to be more consistent.
Can you teach that kind of timing?
Yeah, you can. I mean, you have to. It's just repetition, because God gave them the ability and the size and the strength and the vision. Okay, but now you got to learn the discipline in order to stay on that track until that hole develops, and then you get one cut. Don't make the cut 3 steps too early, because now that offensive lineman thinks he's fixing to block the linebacker, and the linebacker backdoors him,
right?
Because you've already made the cut,
right?
And so it's just it's a muscle
the
memory.
way you describe it, though, it sounds so complicated, and it is complicated. But when you watch it, someone do it effortlessly, they make it look easy.
It's fun to watch. That when that zone comes out of there and those backs get downhill and they kind of splatter those safeties a little bit. I mean, that's that's kind of fun to watch.
And then when you're watching it on TV, Coach, and you're watching NFL replays and our replays, and it's in slow motion, you see it happening.
Yeah.
But in real time, it's so quick.
It really does. And the next step to that is, we've got to be able to, we've got to make a safety miss. When you're running the ball that many times, we're running it, and you've got to make a big play, or we've talked about this before. You're only going to score 20-something points a game. High teens, low 20s, because that clock's steadily running when you're running for 4 yards, and there's no incomplete passes, and there's no big chunk yards. So eventually, we're going to have to come out of one of those runs and make a safety miss, or run up through an arm tackle, and turn those 9-yard runs into 50-yard runs.
And I like it when you got a guy like McNeil who's in a rhythm. You just keep giving him the ball.
Well, we do, and but it's a luxury to have a Boo, and then Garland comes in, and Najee, and so that's a good thing. That was a big concern for us. That position stepped up, but still got to get better without the ball.
Defensively, we talked a little bit about it. Another big game for Ben Johnson. 12 tackles. Thad had 7 tackles. Tony Bell with 6 tackles. Snoop had 6 tackles, and they did a lot of other things, obviously.
I tell you what, it has been really fun to watch just the the maturing of that defense, from last year, and you're seeing players that that understand where they're supposed to be, and what a great play Tony Bell made on the wheel route, where the quarterback rolled to his left and raised up. There's one of our linebackers trying to run with their back 40 yards down the field. And I'm not so sure last year that guy wouldn't have been running free. Okay, but Tony knew exactly where to be, and he had good eyes, and just did a great job. And you see Ben, and I'm so proud of Snoop and how solid he's playing at that position. And then not only is he doing his job, but he's also making up for other guys' mistakes. When somebody misfits something, you're going to see Snoop run it down. And those are things we didn't do last year, so very proud of that defense.
And that's what we were commenting on in the first half, how quick we were getting to the ball and creating the angles and just getting there in a hurry and stuffing out everything they were trying to do in that first half.
I thought so too, and they gave us some looks early as far as some quads, 4 receivers to one side, and Coach Bird said we were not fitting some things correctly early, and that's why he saw them get I believe 2 first downs. Early on us, we were a half a man short of our fits for the runs where we normally would be. But once we got that figured out, and then things went like it was supposed to.
Skyhawks will enter Week 6 boasting the OVC's leading rusher now in DJ McNeil, 111.8 yards per game, and Ben Johnson, the OVC leader in tackles at 9.8 per game. It's pretty nice when you have the leaders one on the offensive side and one on the defensive side.
I didn't realize Ben was back leading it. That says a lot for Ben now, because the position Ben plays. We moved him from the safety position down to the linebacker position, and I mean, he has a quick read to where he has to fit a gap. It's not like we're playing a 4-3 to where down linemen are eating up all the blocks, and those linebackers are able to run free. I mean, Ben and all of our linebackers, as soon as that offensive lineman's hat moves one way, they have a gap they have to go fit, and they got to trust that the next guy is in the correct position to make the play once they do their job. And it's fun to watch those 3 linebackers work together. And kind of the unsung hero is old Bobby. Is Bobby Ellis for us?
He's tough.
Bobby's sitting there. He'll tell you 5'9". I don't know. I don't think he's that tall. But he gets where he's supposed to get, and he allows those guys to make tackles.
And again, only 3 teams in the OVC or in the Sports Network in the entire top 25 have never trailed at any point of the season in an FCS game, which says something about UT Martin. Coach, when we come back, someone asked me what's going on when you're down there with the headset on. So in the next segment, I want to know who you're talking to, what you're talking about, what it's like when you're in the booth, when you're down on the field.
Sounds good. We got to say hello to the Brigands here. They're eating tonight, and their families, the Snappies. So good to see you guys.
Good to see you. We got the Peanut Gallery in here, and that's always a good thing. We'll come back with more live from Snappy Tomato Pizza on the Skyhawk Sports Network. That's Snappy Tomato Pizza. Chris Brinkley with Coach Jason Simpson, Frank, and the gang here. And Charlie Dill's going to join us a little later. We're going to talk about all the homecoming events that are coming up this week. Coach, let's talk about the headsets and the coaches. You see the coaches on the sidelines with the headsets on, and who are you talking to?
Well, on our staff, and every staff's different, okay? I mean, I don't know if you saw the article in Sports Illustrated.
No.
There was an article in Sports Illustrated last week, and there was a sports writer that was in the press box with Ohio State's staff. Mm-hmm. And I think they had like 12 coaches in the box, you know, from interns to graduate assistants to assistant coaches. And I think they had, 3 lines for offense. When I say 3 lines, like on one headset, it's like that's line A. Mm-hmm. And then there's a line B, and there's a line C. Mm-hmm. And usually the offensive coordinator and the head coach can have access to all 3 of those lines.
Okay.
So maybe like on line C, it would be the tight end coach and the offensive line coach, or the wide receiver and the quarterback coach, however that would shake out. And then the defense would have kind of the same setup. Well, we're not that, that's pretty extravagant, and we don't have that. So on ours, the way we're set up is we have 1 line for offense, mm-hmm. 1 line for defense, and then the head coach can switch back and forth. The way we're set up on offense, we have 1 coach in the box, Carmen Felix, and he's in the box, and then the other 3 offensive coaches were on the sideline. And then on defense, Jordan Hankins is in the box, mm-hmm. and the rest of the other 3 defensive coaches on the sideline. Okay, and they have different student assistants with them, writing down plays and charting stuff so we can look at it at halftime.
And that box at Southeast Missouri was very
Is
small.
it?
They were crammed in there, boy, I tell you. So who's wearing the headsets on the sideline?
On the sideline, like it's myself, Eric Studeman, our running back coach, Derek Carr mm-hmm. has them, and then you've got then Kevin Bannon, our offensive line coach. All right, and so what happens on it is, from an offensive standpoint, Carmen will give me the down and distance, and then I'll say the formation and the play. Derek will signal in, what the play is, or the personnel and the play. Mm-hmm. Eric's in charge.
I have to go back. Is Derek pretty good at that?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
He is. And I give him credit for this because he's been with me long enough. Because I make mistakes as well. And there's sometimes I may put us, one formation is called radar, one's called lava. Mm-hmm. And I may say lava, but he knows I meant radar. Okay. And he'll fix it for me. And and those are things, that's very convenient, to have a guy that understands and it was good. It was fun the other night because there was a couple times to where, we were freezing some things. Like we'd say, Trey Wright freeze. Mm-hmm. We'd just run a play and got a few yards where we want to line up as fast as we can and then take a look at the defense before we get in a good play. And, and I hear Derek in my ear, throwing out some plays, that he used to like when he was, he was underneath center. And I think there was a couple of them, that we said, yeah, sounds good. Let's go with it. Problem is, it's not him and Quentin Sims out there throwing to each other. But normally, so when you go from one play to the next, Carmen's in the box and he'll say, hey, it's 2nd and 8, coach, ball's on the right hash. We'll get in a formation and he'll say in the headset, hey, they're lined up in 4 down. 4 down, 4-2, whatever our terminology is. Looks like they're playing cover 4. And you're trying to make notes after each play to make sure you know what the problems were. And then somebody's writing down, recording how the defense lined up, what down and distance they blitzed on. And then in between series, you're trying to get a sequence and a tendency on what the defense is trying to do to you. And then you try to get ready for the next series.
Right. So you're always anticipating what they can do by charting what they have done.
Right. And you say, hey, the last 3rd down now, they blitz. The last 3rd and long, they blitzed. Or they're twisting on 1st and 2nd down. What is the tendencies that their game plan, how they're attacking
And to counter that, on the other side, you don't want to have your tendencies to be obvious, I guess.
Well, yeah, true. And it's kind of one of those deals. That's something that you look at. In my head, I'll say, Carmen, like the other night, he said, Coach, we ran the ball 20 times and thrown it 5. Mm-hmm. And so
because you're not, you're not sitting there with a stat monitor in front of you like people in the press box.
Right, exactly. And it's hard, it's difficult. Last week I took a clipboard out there with me. But as a head coach, it gets very difficult to be involved in the defense as much as you can, as far as the down and distance, and just being there for should we block the punt, should we should we do? And our defense staff does a great job, and Jeff has total control of what we do, what our calls are there on defense. But as a head coach, you got responsibilities. So you don't want to be back there talking to the quarterbacks, and then all of a sudden there's a big issue with the officials,
right,
and you didn't even see it,
right.
Okay, so you're kind of back and forth, trying not to miss anything.
Are you a good multitasker in life? I mean, you're obviously good on the football.
When it comes to football, now nothing else. My wife will tell you nothing else, but like I said, I've got only a certain set of skills, and
that's it.
And hopefully, I'm able to coach for a long time.
Good job, capitalize on it. Now, as an assistant coach, you've been in the booth, right?
Oh yeah, and I'd always been in the booth until I became the head coach here. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that years ago, you and I, about how difficult it is.
It's a different experience.
It's just, the emotions of the game and stuff. And, now that you've been down there, you wouldn't want to go back up, mm-hmm. Okay? But there is some things that you'd be able to see from up in the box that you don't, and that's why you've got good coaches, like Carmen and Coach Hankins in the box to be able to make those communications.
With all the mobile devices, it would be neat if you could utilize a camera angle from the booth even down on the field. I guess you'll never be able to do that.
Well, I know, and technically it's it's illegal to be able to go to halftime and go and look at that, the video.
Oh, you can't. I didn't realize you can't even watch video at halftime.
No, because that was unethical because your opponent doesn't have the opportunity to do that.
If you both had access to it,
I guess if you both,
would you utilize? I mean,
yes,
because
you got 20 minutes, and if that could be loaded as soon as you walked in, and you had 5 minutes to buzz through and see exactly what you were seeing, I mean, you'd be surprised things that you could correct.
Sure.
I mean, because there's you come in on Sunday, you say, well, what they were doing, was this, and some of that goes back to can your players communicate with you and tell you a true picture of what's really happening? Mm-hmm. Okay, especially in the offensive and defensive fronts.
Tell me some funny headset stories, because there have to be some. Have you ever worked with a coach that was difficult to understand?
No. I've been yelled at before. I tell you what, I guess I was on the sideline one time, and I remember I was in charge of personnel, and for some reason, a receiver ran off the field. And I'm just standing there, I'm like, why is he not? What? And the quarterback snaps the ball. Oh, this receiver made a mistake, and the quarterback took a sack, and he blew out his ACL. Oh. So the head coach starts screaming at me. He was frustrated, okay, mm-hmm. But sometimes assistant coach, you catch the wrath of the head coach, and and so he starts screaming at me, and and tells me it's my fault that the guy is hurt because the guy would have been wide open if another receiver would have been there, okay. I knew what he meant, but it came out bad, and so and I felt awful. So I for like the next 3 or 4 probably the next 10 minutes, I didn't say a word on the headset. Mm-hmm. And I remember, and the head coach, you could tell he felt bad. And he says, Coach Simpson, are you still with us? And the offensive line coach, he was a good friend of mine, and he was real gruff and stuff. And he goes, I don't blame him. I wouldn't say anything either. You blamed him for the guy getting hurt. So there was solid quiet.
Right there on the headset.
On the headset. He said, no, I didn't. And he said, yes, you did. I heard what you said. So I'll never forget that. That was 15 years ago.
That's fantastic. And sometimes, I mean, with any kind of electronic equipment or digital equipment, you're going to have malfunctions, and that's the worst, and that happens.
Oh, and that's when you just look at Butch and, you look at each other and nothing you can do. You can get mad all you want, but we're very fortunate we get
your crew did a really good job of setting up the headsets because they were beside us in the booth, and they had to tape the wires because it was so small. I mean, how many guys do you have up there? 4 guys crammed in a room that's 4. Probably like 5 feet by 6 feet. I mean, it was pretty amazing up there how tight it was, but that's part of it. And what's always interesting to me, and as a broadcaster, I've sat beside the opponent's coaches and our coaches, but how much enthusiasm can be in that room. You hear people pounding on the walls and banging on the doors. It's pretty cool.
Well, and those are things you wish that and I've done the same thing. And of course, you've had ADs come over and look at you and say, what are you doing? Control yourself. We've got the chancellor's next door to us. And we should, but, this is what we do.
It's different for you, though, because you have an effect on the game, unlike the chancellor or the fans.
You do. And this is how we pay our bills.
Right.
I mean, it is. This is how we support our families, and there's a lot of things that go with this job. But at the end of the day, Lane Kiffin doesn't have a job anymore.
That's right.
Okay, and I don't care if you coach at USC or FCS level, wherever. I mean, we're paid to put a good product on the field and educate our student athletes. But you got to win games. So that's what happens. When you see that emotion come through. But sometimes when you can't control it in the box. So beating on the window and things like that, you're not helping anything. Say it in the headset, let's get it corrected and move on, and sometimes that's easier said than done.
Okay, we'll take a break. We'll come back and talk about Jacksonville State, the homecoming opponent on Saturday. Live from Snappy Tomato Pizza, Skyhawk Talk continues on the UT Martin Skyhawk Sports Network.